Hello and welcome back to my channel, The Little Craft House. Today's tutorial is how to create a gingham style slab. I'm using the Sculpey brand of polymer clay today, and I've chosen three colours of black, white and silver. I'm going to need even-ish portions of the black, the white and double the amount of the silver. You'll see I've cut here even pieces, but I did need to adjust these quantities later. I'm going to need to get these clays conditioned up and ready for use. It's quite cold here at the moment, so I find that in the colder months, polymer clay requires a bit extra working to get it soft and workable. I generally try to avoid my clay conditioning machine for the white as much as possible because it does need a clean and quite often leaves dirty marks. I will need to use it later because I'll need to get it nice and thin, but for now I'll just condition it as much as I can by hand and with my roller. And I'll just speed this up just so you can see me doing it, but you don't have to sit around and watch me doing it for ages. The next step is using my favourite clay tool or toy. It's the extruder. So I like these windy handle ones best as I find that they're more friendly on your hands than the push type ones. I'm going to want the handle back, which is going to allow me to pop the clay in. Mine does need a little bit of oiling. It's a little bit squeaky at the moment, so I need to fix that. But otherwise, yeah, these are my favourite type of extruders. And so I'm just going to roll that clay down to be able to fit it in. That one's too fat. Give it a bit more of a roll. And pop it in there, and then I'm just going to trim off any of that extra bit that's hanging out. You can probably see I've selected a circle disc there. I decided that one's going to be too big and fat for what I want. I need a smaller one, so I think there's a couple of different sized smaller discs in here. Some put out the multiple strands, but I just want the singular size one. I think that's going to work best for this pattern, as I don't want it to be too big, but I also don't want it to be too small either. This one's a little bit dirty, so I'm just going to give it a quick wipe. One day I'll learn to clean my tools before I put them away. I'm usually in just such a hurry to get to the next step that I just pop them away. Okay, so I'm just going to whack the disc in the end there and secure the cap and start winding. And pretty quickly that strand of clay is coming out. It's going to be nice long big spaghetti pieces. So I want to do that with the white, with the silver and with the black. Now, if you don't have an extruder, you can still do this gingham style slab. All you'll need to do is cut some strips of clay, even pieces, even lengths, and yeah, use those ones instead of these long spaghetti strands. You definitely notice the difference between a well-conditioned clay and a firmer clay. It's definitely much easier to extrude out the softer clays. So I rolled out a sheet of white clay to use as my base. I did pop this through the pasta machine and I did it on the thinnest setting. I'm going to then cut this into two evenish pieces. Now this is actually an optional step. I do like to use a base as I find that it holds together better and the final product is a lot stronger. But if you don't want to use a base, you don't have to. Okay, so time to create the first slab. We're going to create stripes using the black and the silver clays. This can be quite a slow process, as I like to make sure that the strands are lined up nice and evenly next to each other with no gaps, and also making sure that they are kept nice and straight. There are a few different methods for creating a striped slab. I created a tutorial a little while back using just this technique, but yeah, there are other techniques as well. This is my favourite and I think the most easiest to do. So I'm just going to give this a gentle roll over with my acrylic roller, and I'm just going to work in the direction of the stripes. I want to apply enough pressure that it kind of squishes out those round spaghetti strands, just enough to bond them together, but also to bond it to the base without distorting those stripes. And I'm just going to trim off the edges just to neaten it up. Now, obviously, I save all of these little scrappy offcuts to use later in another design. If you check out my Instagram, I quite often do little mini tutorials over there, and I show lots of how to use up scrap clay. These ones I don't have a plan for yet, but when I do, I'll definitely be doing a mini tutorial over there using up these pieces. Right, so now I'm going to work on the second stripy slab. This time I'm going to use the white and the silver. So when choosing the colours for this gingham pattern, you want to choose two colours that are of different shades along with a contrasting colour. So I chose the black and the silver grey, but colours like red and pink or light blue, dark blue, maybe something like orange and yellow would also work well. The lighter colour is the one that you want to appear in both of the stripy slabs. So for me, that's the silver grey. And so again, I'm just going to give this a little roll over and a little trim. And now I have my two perfect striped slabs. So as tempting as it is to keep them, we're now going to transform them into the gingham slab. So my workspace is quite small, so I'm going to try my hardest to show you the next steps as clearly as I can. I've rolled out another thin piece of base clay. Again, I find it easier to apply to a base, as I find that this is just going to improve the strength of your pieces at the end. Each time I do roll these base clays though, they are super thin, so it's not adding too much thickness or weight to what will be our final piece. And so I've switched out my blade to this rigid blade, which is a nice firm one. Unlike the flexi blade that I usually use, you'll find that this rigid blade gives much straighter cut. I want to make sure each of the slices that I'm doing now are about the same thickness as each of those stripes that we made. So that was why it was important when choosing the size of the stripe, not to make it too thin, because I now need to cut these pieces to that same sizing. I am moving my slabs around a little bit. I'm just trying to get myself in a bit of a rhythm. I find that it is easiest to slice the slabs from the edge that's closest to me, and then as I'm popping it up onto that base clay, that's starting at the edge closest to me as well and working away. So because I'm trying to get it all in shot for you to watch, yeah, I'm just moving it around a little bit. So I wouldn't normally do that. I'd normally try and spread myself out a little bit more and not be quite as awkward. It's also important when you're laying these pieces down to make sure that your colours are alternating. So I don't want the grey pieces to end up on top of grey pieces. So the benefit of working on this base here, I'm just kind of lifting up and stretching a little bit, and that helps just to position those coloured pieces where I want them. And I will try a few different camera angles here just to give you a better view of how it's progressing. And once again, I'm just going to trim off those extra bits. Now I'm going to place a piece of baking paper on the top, and I'm just going to give this a little rub to help bond it all back together. So I don't want my pattern to distort at all, so I'm going to be as gentle as possible but still apply enough pressure for it to bond. I'm going to also give it a quick roll over with my acrylic roller, and I'm just going to do this in on the angle, so that, again, trying not to distort it. You'll notice that I keep putting the blade underneath and releasing the paste from my tile. It's just because if I leave that until the end, then I find that sometimes it may have actually bonded onto the tile too much, and then you get in all sorts of trouble as you try and lift it up. So I like to just do this releasing at the end of sort of every stage, just to help. There we go. Look at that. It looks awesome. I'm so happy with it. Okay, and so the hardest part is always working out what shapes I'm going to cut, what design I'm going to do, because obviously once you cut into it, you can't change your mind. So I had already decided that I wanted to do these hollow sort of shapes. I'm just doing the outer piece first and doing the internal while it's still on or still in position. That just also helps stop any squishing and distortion of the original, like the outer piece. I'm just going to also just smooth the edges before popping it into the oven. That saves me time sanding later. So I am really happy with this design and I hope that you guys have enjoyed watching me create it. Hopefully you've picked up some tips and tricks along the way. If you haven't already had a go at making a gingham slab, I do recommend you give it a go. It's definitely fun and a satisfying process, especially once you finish and see those awesome pieces that you've made. So thank you once again for joining me today, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye for now.